Okay. Sound, of course, we know we have ear and we hear sound, etc. But sound actually is a vibration, and if we think of vibration, then we understand that everything in the universe is vibrating. So we have, in modern science, of course, we have like the little molecules and the atoms and things like that. So we have the nucleus and we have the electrons going around like that, and they're all vibrating, and they all have their particular frequency of vibration. It's all very regular. We can't detect that on our level, but it's actually happening all the time. So the atoms are vibrating, and each atom has its own particular vibration according to the element, etc. The atoms get together and they form molecules. Certain things form stable molecules, and then these molecules also are held together, and they're vibrating at a certain rate as well. And that also determines the property of that particular compound of molecules, etc. When we combine those molecules together, then we start getting very interesting substances like bodies, living bodies of plants and animals, etc. And the animals and plants, they all have particular organs in their body. So we have bones, and we have heart and liver and kidney, etc. And all the organs of the body also have their own particular vibration. So some scientists have got interested in this vibration starting in, let's say, 1900 or so. They began investigating about how the organs of the body vibrate, and they started developing some sort of science based upon vibrations in the body. And they detected how, the different shoulders, we vibrate at one rate, the lungs at another rate, the abdomen at another rate, etc. And based on this, they developed some sort of science, which calls it biofeedback, etc. So with the development of this, they found that they could actually, using a vibration, they could detect when the vibration was not proper. That means there's disease. And then they put the vibration of the organ in the proper place again, and then you cure your disease. So it's a rather subtle way of adjusting the body through vibration. So a whole science developed based on this. It was a Dr. Rife who did a lot of research into the frequencies of the various organs of the body and how to put them into proper balance again and in proper health. So we see that the whole body is actually vibrating at different rates in different organs. And if they're not vibrating properly, then we have problems. So vibration is very important for the health of our body. We also have a brain, and the brain has waves also. So we're very familiar with the broad spectrum of waves. So we have the waking state at one level, then we have the alpha state, which is like the relaxation state. That's a particularly interesting state, that state. And then we have the deep sleep state, etc. So there's different vibrations in the brain also, and the human being has all of these vibrations at different times. And if we don't get all of these sections in our brain working properly, then we have problems sleeping, etc. And eventually we get health problems and psychological problems, etc. So our brain has to have all these waves operating at certain times in the proper proportions. So let's say the whole brain nervous system has got its vibration also. Apart from that, the brain, when we think, has its particular vibrations. That's, of course, the waking state, particularly. And they've even discovered that they can, with the modern computers, etc., they can decode your thoughts, your vibrations that come out of your brain. They get your vibrations, they can decode them, and they can understand what you're thinking. So that's the extent of science nowadays. They can read your thoughts. So previously we know that yogis could read your thoughts like this, but now we have machines that can read your thoughts. The opposite is also true. Since they have the vibration, they can feed it back into your brain, and they can make you think something as well. So this is a more dangerous type of mind control that can happen also. So this is kind of a dangerous field that we get into when we start getting this far in analyzing the human thoughts and brain, etc. So anyway, very, very powerful. The brain itself has waves of thought, etc., and those, they can be decoded. Apart from that, we have the vibrations of the earth. So we never really think of the earth as vibrating, but the scientists have also discovered that the earth, its natural vibration is 7.83 hertz. which is a very, very interesting vibration. It's called the Schumann resonance, and it happens because there's some ionosphere in the Earth interacting, and it creates a vibration that goes at 7.83 hertz. So that's the natural vibration of the Earth. Interestingly enough, the same as the 7.83 hertz is also the alpha wave of the human brain, which is the meditation state. So therefore, the Earth's natural vibration and our meditation state are in sync as well. So if you're in your meditation state, then you're in harmony with the Earth, more or less, we could say. So we have a little bit of a unity there between the human being and the Earth itself. So this is not a speculation, it's actually a scientific fact. If you look on the internet, you can find all sorts of facts about the Schumann resonance. So it's very interesting that it vibrates at this rate. But since the Earth is vibrating, and we're also vibrating, and our mind is vibrating, we have our alpha waves going also, it's natural that the human being would figure out where the Earth is in its most natural state. And therefore, in ancient civilizations, or what we call primitive societies or whatever, they always chose particular spots which are very sacred. So in Australia, we have very sacred spots. In England, we have sacred spots like Stonehenge, and all over Europe we have these prehistoric monuments established in different spots. Nobody knows why like that, but if we examine carefully, we'll see that actually it's because these spots were actually aligned with the vibrations of the Earth. Those particular places were particularly powerful to, resonate with your brain in alpha state, etc. So therefore, they chose those sites. And if you go around the world and find all these ancient sacred sites, then you could probably find there's a pattern to them. And they're located at certain positions on the Earth in a very interesting pattern. And it's all over the Earth. And particularly in India, we have so many places there which are very, very sacred, all over the place. And again, because of this, if you go to that place, you're more susceptible to spiritual influence and meditation and inspiration, etc. So they found these were very powerful places, so therefore they established temples and monuments at these places. So we have various sacred sites around the world. And we should not think that the ancient peoples were just superstitious. They did have good reasons for establishing their sites at certain places. We know that it took a lot of endeavor to build these ancient things like the Stonehenge. Why would they drag stones from hundreds of miles away, these huge stones on rollers or whatever they did in those ancient times when they were still in the Stone Age? Why would they spend so much time dragging all these stones there and then erecting them and putting stones on top of them, etc.? Because there must have been some significance to that particular place. So if we examine carefully, it's because the Earth's vibrations of that place are particularly powerful, and therefore they chose those spots. So another type of vibration, of course, is musical vibration. And we see that music itself is universal among the humans. I don't know if they got monkeys or anything to do music, but at least the human beings, even the most primitive societies, they have some sort of music. And of course, we find in more advanced societies, we get a scale. And we find the same scales around the world, whether there's India or Europe or Asia. We'll have scales. The vibration of the scale is mathematically related to the other notes. It's very mathematical in its structure of the scale. And mathematics people, they're very fascinated with musical vibrations because of the mathematical relationships there between the different notes and flats and sharps, etc. So it's a very, very mathematical laid out based upon frequencies. As we saw, we have the alpha frequency of the brain, etc. So when we get particular frequencies in a relationship, we get notes of the scale. Okay? And now these notes themselves also are interesting because some people have correlated these vibrations of the notes also with your body. So we have chakras in the body in yoga. We have the Muladhara chakra at the base of the spine, we have the Sahasrara at the top of the head, and we have all the other chakras in between. So they've correlated different notes of the scale, the vibration, with different chakras of your body. And in other words, a particular vibration of a particular note, will stimulate that particular chakra. So the chakras are important because chakra means a wheel, literally in Sanskrit. And a wheel, of course, its natural thing is to spin. So these chakras are moving, so they have their own vibration also. They have the particular spin rate, so many revolutions per minute or whatever like this. And if the spin rate is proper, then that chakra is in good health, and that particular part of the body is in good health. So you've got heart chakra. If it's not proper, then you're going to have a heart problem. If it's going too slow, it's going too fast, you may have high blood pressure, low blood pressure, whatever like this. So if it's at the spinning at its natural rate in the proper, not counterclockwise, but the right clockwise direction, then you have a healthy heart. So the notes of the scale also are related to the chakras, and they can help you put your chakras back into their natural mode of speed or whatever like that. So very interesting concept also. This is where we get music as therapy. There is someone in India, I think Mysore, that uses music to help adjust your chakras. There's also mantras for each of these chakras, and some people also use the mantras to invoke each chakra and put each chakra in its proper vibrational mode. When we take the notes of the scale and we put them into certain combinations, we get what is called music, which has a very powerful influence on the human being. So the human beings develop the scale, and then they put them in different combinations, and we get musical melodies, tunes, etc., with rhythm. So music is also, we could say, very, very powerful. We know that the individual notes are powerful because they affect the whole body, but then the combination of those notes into certain patterns also affects not only the human being, even the plant. So scientists have done studies of plants and how music affects plants and their growth. Now, plants do not have ears, they don't have brains, they don't have nervous systems, but they get affected by music, that the vibration is effective. And if they get nice music, like classical Mozart or something like that, or Raga music of India, they grow very nicely. If they get disharmonious music, loud music, heavy rhythmic music, heavy rock music, they tend to die. So we see that music has a very profound influence even on plants. They've also done research with little animals like mice. So they did in Tokyo University, they studied the mice and they did a little surgery, heart surgery on the mouse, and then they see how he recovers. So if you get the nice relaxing classical music, they recover quickly. If you put the wrong music, the disharmonious music, heavy rock music, etc., they do not heal properly. So again, animals, with the proper music, they'll heal. So music can be very healing for people. It can help us. It can help us repair our systems. Several studies have also been done to show that not only the health of the mice, animals, the brain also gets affected. So their IQ increased if you had the classical music, and it decreased if you had the heavy rock music. Which says something for our modern society. If people are all going to these rock things all the time, maybe their brains are getting disintegrated or something because of that. Not only that, they've done an experiment with mice, and they found that if they, like 2 weeks, I think somebody did an experiment with, and they put this real heavy rock music on for 2 weeks for the mice, and they ended up becoming cannibalistic, killing each other. They went mad, in other words. So in other words, music can have a very dangerous effect on the human being also, certain types of music. So very, very powerful influence, just the music. And you know, everything affects us, like the food affects us, environment affects us, music affects us, all these things affect us. So we have to choose the right music in order to elevate our consciousness or degrade our consciousness. Very, very powerful influence on us. And we're not even aware of it. So that was animals and plants, how music affects them. And what about human beings? So they've done experiments on human beings. So with the human beings, they've found that what happens is that if you have the proper music, cortisol gets decreased in your system. And if you've got the wrong type of music, the cortisol increases. And the cortisol, it excites you, and it's the hormone that's released when you panic. So it's a very exciting hormone. It makes you freak out. So people get stimulated by that, some people. Like when you go to, what is that thing up there in the all these crazy rides they have up there on the theme parks. And people are screaming and yelling like this is their cortisol increasing like anything. So it's good for survival, but on the long term, it's very detrimental to your system. It just starts destroying your body. So if we have this relaxing music, they found it helps heal people, and the cortisol reduces, so they get a healing effect in their body. If they have the other music, then of course it destroys their system like that. Huh? So we have this bands, for instance, marching bands with lots of drums, bang, 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 they use in the army. All armies of the world will probably have this music. You have this bang, 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 like this. This excites your system. So it's good for fighting. It's good to excite you. I think even the Romans had the same thing. They would go up and they had the guy drum, and they march down the road like that. So it's good. It stimulates you, but in the long term, it's very detrimental to your system. It starts destroying your body. You get addicted to it, and at the same time, the cortisol tends to destroy your body. So it shortens your lifespan. Yeah? So that's the effect of music on human beings. Sound again can be used as a weapon. So many governments of the world have invested in sound weapons. and with these sound weapons, they can aim it at a crowd and they can make everybody paralyzed. They can get them sick. They can make them vomit. They can make them faint. They can do all sorts of things with sound even. So this is the effect of sound on us. It's very, very powerful. In terms of gunas, maybe you've had a little bit introduction to the gunas. In the Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, everything in this world is divided into these three gunas or qualities: sattva, rajas, and tamas. Whether it's food or activities or places, people, etc. Tamas means darkness or ignorance. So this is the lowest mode. That's why it's black. It's called darkness. So it's very destructive, very slow, sleep, laziness, etc. Rajas is very passionate. It's very creative. People who like to create things and are very active, that's rajas. Cities are basically rajagun or rajas. Sattva is a very peaceful mode. It's good for maintenance. It's good for repair. It's good for longevity, etc. So this is considered to be the preferable guna or mode. So everything in the world can be divided into sattva, rajas, tamas like this. So we have your outlook on life. If you're in sattva, you get detached from material enjoyment. Rajas, you have a lot of desires to fulfill. Tamas, you're completely in ignorance. You don't want to do anything. It's like sleep. In sattva, your motivation is knowledge. We want some understanding of why we're alive, etc. Rajagun, we're just trying to enjoy in this world as much as we can. If it's in tamas, we have no goal at all. We don't know what we want. In terms of music then, music which is peaceful, that helps restore the body, that is sattvic music. Music which excites you and makes you very active, that is rajasic. And music which destroys your body and your mind is tamasic music. So like this, we can have all sorts of things. We can have food in terms of sattva, rajas, tamas. So food which is sattvic will maintain the body nicely. So basically vegetarian food is sattvic. Rajasic food is it stimulates your body, so meats and spicy food, etc. And tamasic food is those things which actually put you to sleep, like alcohol and things like that, drugs. Yeah? So that's the gunas. Another interesting aspect of sound is that it actually has a form, which we'll discuss why it's so important that sound has a form. We know, of course, that sound has, you can write little notes like that. It's not that form, but you can actually record the shape of a note of the scale. So they have a little instrument called the somatic instrument here, where you play a note and it vibrates a plate. And on the plate they put some sand. And then you put a certain note, it makes a certain pattern in the sand. So out of that, each note of the scale has a different little pattern to it. So when you play music, you're actually getting a whole series of patterns, which you don't even see, but those patterns are changing all the time as well. So not only you're getting something in your ear, but so this pattern is also changing all the time. So if you had the eyes, you could see the visuals also for this. So musical notes have forms like this. So very, very interesting. Another aspect of sound is we have sound as mantra. the mantra takes a physical form or a visual form as a yantra. So we have many yantras in India. We have the mantras, and then we have the yantras, which represent the mantra. And you'll see these paintings on the walls, sometimes of temples and other places. They also have them in Buddhism as well, the yantras and the mandalas, etc. So they're basically expansions of sound, but in a geometric form. And coincidentally, the yantra also represents the universe. So in other words, the universe is also sound, basically. So this represents a sound. It also represents the whole universe, like that. And we have many different yantras in India also. And that universe, if we look at the universe again, it's basically like the yantra. It's very symmetrical. It's often very circular. And it follows precise geometric proportions in its structure, like that. So whether we take the whole galaxy or we take a pine cone or a seashell, they're all operating on a geometric, symmetrical geometrical principle, like that. Just like the yantra is squares and circles. When we take notes and we make music, in India they have what is called the raga, which is we have 7 notes plus sharps and flats, and you can combine them in different ways. So you take a selection of the notes, and maybe 7 notes, and maybe 6 notes, and maybe 5 notes, and it could be some sharp and some flat, or many sharps and many flats, etc., like that. And then you get what's called the raga. You take those notes, then you start making your melodies out of that. So there's many ragas in India, but each raga also has a form. So not only the note has that form, we saw a little like a circular form with it, but the whole pattern of the music also has a form to it. So when they describe a raga in India, they give you the selection of notes, and then they describe that form of the raga. It's actually a person. So each raga has a particular person. So here's 2 ragas here that are representing particular persons. So another aspect of sound, very important, is words. So for us, of course, words is just some sound that goes in your ear and it has some meaning to it because of your language you speak. It's a vibration that operates through the air, goes into your ear, hits the eardrum. That will stimulate some nerve or something in your thing, and it goes to your brain, and then you register that sound as a word, and then you get some meaning to it. Out of this we get knowledge. So this is very important for the human being. From the Vedic point of view, this sound is not quite the same. Of course, it operates through the airwaves, etc., vibration, but sound actually in the Vedas operates on another level. It's called ether, not air. It's a very more a subtler level called ether, which they had in Greek science. They had ether. So it operates through the ether sound, actually. And sound is not just any random sound. It's sound that conveys a meaning. So that when they talk about sound in the Vedas, sabda and it means word, it also means sound. So it's that which indicates a particular object, and it's not just random sound. So we put those words together, and even one sound, and we get spiritual sound out of this. So sound in the Vedas actually is spiritual. Sound has meaning, has import, but ultimately it is spiritual. It arises from spirit, and then when we use it, it also has a spiritual influence on us. So out of the sound comes, and words comes the Vedas. And the Vedas is considered to be the breathing of Vishnu. So the whole of the Veda is actually spiritual sound. But we hear it and it looks like words, it looks like normal sound, but actually it's spiritual. So we shouldn't be confused and think that all sound is merely, this physical sound. There's this spiritual aspect coming through also. And in fact, everybody probably knows this Om, very famous sound. This is considered to be the basic sound of the universe that vibrates throughout the universe, and the whole of the universe originates from this one little sound. Of course, it's analyzed as ah, oo, and three syllables actually, and but it's considered to be the basis of all of the Vedas. It's out of this Om that the Gayatri mantra comes from. The Gayatri we get all the Vedas, etc. But it's considered to be a very sacred sound. So it just sounds like, okay, what is it? It's a syllable for us, but actually in the Vedas it's considered to be the spiritual essence of everything, and upon which this whole world is based. So it's a little more subtle than we think it is, like that. So Vishnu is the original Supreme Lord. He emanates this sound Om. This becomes the Vedas. So the Vedas and Om are non-different from Vishnu himself. Like that. So there are many passages in the Upanishads, the part of the Vedas, which glorify the syllable Om. So when creation takes place, according to the Vedic literature, of course, creation and destruction are like eternal. There's a creation, there's destruction, there's a creation, there's destruction, there's a creation. There's an internal process of creation and destruction. It's not just one creation and then a destruction, that's it. It's a continual creation and destruction of not just one universe, but billions of universes. So they're continually created and destroyed. For us, it is trillions of years or whatever for this whole cycle to take place. For the Supreme Lord is 1 second. So every second is a creation, next second is a destruction. Creation, destruction. But for us, each is billions and billions of years going on like this. And so it's a continuous cycle. So in this cycle of creation, we find that Om also and the Gayatri mantra is there. And it's described in the Brahma Samhita how Krishna gave the Gayatri mantra, which is from Om is there, and then it expands into Gayatri mantra. He gave it to Brahma. Brahma got the Gayatri mantra, and then he was able to create the universe because of that. So the sound was very important for him to get his inspiration from. Okay. Interestingly enough, and science itself also, they also say that sound was inherent in the beginning of the universe. So here's just something from the New Scientist, one magazine. Sound waves that rang out in the early universe sculpted its structure. The best measurement yet of their imprint on galaxies is a boon to dark energy studies. About 30,000 years after the Big Bang, matter collapsed around dense seeds of dark matter. Outward pressure from photons caused the collapsing matter to rebound, creating acoustic waves, sound, like ripples in a pond. So we get sound inherent in the creation of the universe also. So therefore, sound is, you could say that vibration is inherent in everything. So you would see it, vibrations in the atoms and protons and all the living bodies, etc. But in the whole universe itself, in the creation, we have sound. So now we get to the spiritual sound wave. We talked about Om and Gayatri mantra and Vedas, that spiritual sound. We call this mantra. So mantra has two syllables, man and tra. Man stands for manas. Manas means mind. Tra stands for triate, which means to deliver or to free. So mantra is sound which delivers the mind or frees the mind, liberates the mind. So it's not ordinary sound, it's special sound. So how does it do it? It's because that sound, or the mantra, is spiritual. Which means we have a spiritual world with the mantra in it. Somehow, within our material world, that sound manifests, that mantra manifests. So it's still spiritual, but it manifests in this world. Using that mantra, then we can get back to the spiritual realm. So basically, in the material world, if we use the mantra, we can right now enter into that spiritual realm through mantra, because it is spiritual. There's a little subtle explanation here. How does that sound become audible to us, so we can hear it with our ear? So originally it's called para, or spiritual sound, and you cannot hear it. Then it gets a little bit of a covering on it, so you can mentally detect it a little bit. Then it gets more of a covering called madhyama, in which you can actually start to think about it. Okay, it means this, it means that, or whatever like that. Then finally it reaches a stage where you can say, ah, it's this word, and we can say it. That's called the verbal aspect of it, called Vaikari. And when you hear it, then you can also say it. When you say it, you can hear it like this. So we get the audible sound. But originally it's the para sound. So within that audible sound we hear, which sounds like material sound, we do have that para aspect remaining. It's still there. The spiritual aspect is there, in spite of the fact we hear with the material ear. It also operates throughout the chakras. So we go from the Muladhara chakra, the para enters through the Muladhara chakra, rises up until it comes to here. This is your Visuddha chakra, and then you can say the sound. So that's in terms of yoga, it rises and falls like this. So in other words, we have that spiritual sound there as the basis. What we hear is the verbal aspect, that yellow part on the top. But when we hear that, we're also hearing the para aspect. So we get that spiritual influence there within the sound, even though it looks like we're just hearing something on the audible level. It's actually got the spiritual aspect within it also. So it's very, very subtle like that. In other words, that spiritual sound is there, and eventually we can say it, we can hear it. When it goes in, it can start spiritually influencing it because it's para, it's spiritual, and it can take us back to that spiritual realm. So that's the power of mantra, why it's very special. Weak spiritual effects, very difficult to measure by material means, but material effects we can measure. So mantra has material effects, positive material effects, and some scientists have done studies with this. So they take some mantras like Gayatri mantra and other mantras, and they have people chant them or hear those mantras, and they see the effect on the people. So they found that scientifically there was a change, like the DNA started unwinding. When the DNA is all tangled up, this has caused unhealthy symptoms, aging, etc. When we untangle the DNA, then we get good health. So they found that the chanting of mantras would unwind the DNA and create, let's say, positive health effects. Recently, I think maybe 10 years ago or so, maybe 15 years ago, one scientist discovered telomeres on your chromosomes. There you see a chromosome at the bottom, and has the little tips on the bottom, on the ends of it, little tips. So those, what they call telomeres, they're very, very significant, because if those telomeres are nice and strong and healthy, that means your cells are in good health, so you don't age. If those telomeres are weak, that means you're aging fast. You're going to die sooner. You're getting sicker. So in other words, the telomeres are a sign of your aging and your good health or your bad health. So it's a good way to simply see the effect of anything, how it affects your life. They experimented with different things, and then they found, okay, let's try walking. So they walk every day. Have a good walk every day. So it had a nice effect. It increased the telomeres, made it stronger a little bit. They tried yoga. Yoga good, maybe 5% increase, like that. They tried Tai Chi. That's the Chinese, slow motion. It wasn't so effective because it took them so long to learn it. They couldn't learn it properly, so they gave up on that. But anyway, they found that regular exercise was good for you. Do it regular exercises, and yoga was good. They tried vegetarian food, very good. Had maybe 5% effect also. Music. Relaxing music was good, maybe 3% good effect like that. So various things would increase the telomeres strength. They tried even a group, just people meeting in a group every week and talking to each other. That was good. Had a 5% effect also. So many different things had a little bit of effect like that. Then they tried kirtan, which has group people, music, mantra, of course, and vegetarian, etc. Altogether, they got 40% increase in the telomere effect. So a very, very powerful effect. Well, this is, of course, physical effect only. It's good health or whatever. Telomeres get stronger, etc. So it stops your aging process, etc. So this was just, they did 12 minutes a day for 2 months. And they got 43% increase in the telomeres. So very good. So this is the physical effect of chanting the mantra and kirtan. So that's the physical effect. Then on a subtle level, let's say your mind, etc., they've also done experiments to see how it affects your physical psychology, etc. And they did see that ultimately by chanting the mantras, it made your breathing very regular. And regular breathing was a sign that your mind was settled down, etc. So it created peace in your mind, etc. So they've done many experiments on that as well. But what we're interested more is the spiritual effect, which you cannot really prove by scientific means. But all we can do is go to the scriptures to get the testimony there. So the mantra for us is not the physical effect or the psychological effect, but the spiritual effect. So through the mantra, you can actually realize spiritual form. Previously I said that the notes had forms to them, ragas had forms to them, mantras had forms to them, and yantras, etc. So if you take the mantra, or the name of the Lord, like Hare Krishna mantra, it actually has a spiritual form behind it. And if you chant the mantra, you can realize that form. So if you chant Hare Krishna, you realize Krishna, obviously. But it's not a material form like that little wheel you get with putting C note or D note, etc. This is, you chant the name Krishna, you realize a spiritual form of Krishna. So that's the spiritual effect of it. The sound and the object are non-different. The sound Krishna and then Krishna himself are the same thing. So you realize Krishna through that sound. Of course, we don't just chant Krishna, we chant Hare Krishna. So Hare is very interesting because this is actually Radha. So if you go to our temple on the hill there, you'll see that in the mid-center there's Radha and Krishna. It's not just Krishna, there's two, Radha and Krishna. So Hare stands for Radha, and then of course Krishna for Krishna. So it means Radha and Krishna, Hare Krishna. So through chanting Hare Krishna, we can realize Radha and Krishna. Okay, so why we use the mantra? We realize Krishna, and then what happens? Ultimately, we get an experience of love, unconditional love, eternal unconditional love. The result of that is bliss, happiness, spiritual happiness. So interestingly enough, if we just take the meaning of Krishna, it's actually 2 syllables, Krishna. Krish means the source of everything. And na means the source of all bliss. So therefore, Krishna ultimately means everything in its most blissful form. Everything which is blissful. We kind of Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. Rama also means the giver of bliss. Hare stands for Radha, and Radha is also considered to be the bliss Shakti, or the bliss potency of Krishna. So again, Hare indicates bliss. So we have 3, Hare Krishna and Hare Ram, all represent bliss. So ultimately, by chanting the mantra and realizing Krishna, then the individual can experience that bliss. So this is a very, very special sound mantra. We see that it has physical effects. Your telomeres get stronger, whatever. It has effects on the mind. You get more peaceful. And then ultimately for the soul or the Atma, you can get bliss and get a highest experience of bliss. So this actually is the main thing we concentrate with the mantra, getting that highest bliss for the Atma, like that. So we have all 3 effects there, physical, mental, and then of course spiritual effect. So you can get your DNA affected, you can get chakras affected, you get the soul or the Atma affected, and finally we get this highest bliss. So that's basically the most significant sound. Of all sounds, mantra is most powerful because it's spiritual, and through that mantra the individual can get the highest bliss. And through that we enter into the spiritual realm. Okay, that's it. Fine. Question?
So before you all collect your questions, since we talked about those 3 words, why don't we all just chant the Hare Krishna mantra together once or twice, and then sort of get our thoughts together and ask Maharaj some questions. So on the count of 3, repeat after me. Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Rama Rama!
Rama Rama!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
That was at half volume, so let's crank up the volume the next time, okay? I'll go softer, you go louder. Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Rama Rama!
Rama Rama!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Okay, this time I'll go really, really soft and see if you can drown me out, okay? Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
I go loud. Hare Krishna!
Hare Krishna!
Krishna!
Krishna Krishna!
Hare Hare!
Hare Hare!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Hare Rama!
Rama Rama!
Rama Rama! Hare Hare!
Questions or comments?
I'd like to ask about the definition between like physical and non-physical. In that presentation it had like thoughts, so that's still physical, just subtle.
Yeah.
And then what about like chakras and energy, because we can't perceive that? Is that
Yeah.
physical or
Yeah. We have 2 physical levels: the gross and the subtle. So we have what is called the gross body, and then we have the subtle body. And they're both material. Then we have the Atma, or the soul, above that. So the gross body is what we see here, basically, with the bones and the blood and the muscles and the nerves and the eyes and the hands and the feet. Then we have the subtle body, which is, we can say, the aura and the chakras and your mind, your intelligence, your identity, which is called the false ego or ahankara. All of this is part of the subtle body. It also has your karma in it. And it has all your thoughts from all your previous lifetimes stuck in it also. All of your impressions of previous lifetimes all stuck in that subtle body. And that subtle body does not die when you die. That goes with the soul into the next body. So that's how you can continue your previous memories into your next body and your karmas, because that subtle body goes with you. That subtle body also has senses. So even if this body isn't operating, your subtle body can operate, as in dreams, or when you have a near-death experience. You can see and you can hear, but your brain is dead. So this eye is not operating, this nose is not operating, this ear is not operating. It's all dead. But you can still hear. How you can hear? Because the subtle senses are operating at that stage. So apart from the brain and your physical body, we have the mind, intelligence, and all these subtle senses operating as well. So they can take over when your gross body is not operating. So when you die and before you get another body, you can have experiences in that period also.
Thank you. Thank you for your clarity. Has silence been measured?
Could you speak up a little bit now so everybody
Has
can hear?
silence been measured?
Has silence been measured? Probably scientists have measured it.
The subtle energies, has there been a study about the effects on the body of silence?
Oh, I don't know, probably, but I think they use it for torture methods. If you have a complete silence, it's so unnatural that people go crazy after a while, so they use that in torture chambers or whatever in Russia and other places. Maybe CIA uses it. They just cut off all your sound and sound deprivation, and then the brain cannot stand that anymore. You go wild. This is crazy. So
There's this chambers now where you go in and it's
oh yeah. Your the float tanks.
yeah, and it's for regenerating.
Yeah.
Like your body.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You do need some training of the mind to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, also, yeah. Especially if you do it for long periods of time.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
let's say good training of the mind, you can be there for a long time.
Yeah.
Is there stories about that?
I haven't had particular stories. I think for short periods of time you can do that. If it's prolonged, I think that you may have some bad psychological effects also, because it's not natural for most people unless you're trained for that type of thing. Now, if you're a yogi, on the other hand, you're trained to stop the mind completely. Okay? So that's the whole goal of yoga. Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That's the first sutra, the second sutra of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. That means to stop all mental functions. So that means you stop your thoughts, you stop all your senses, everything stops completely. When that happens, then only the soul is present. And so you realize soul at that point, because you stopped everything. You stop all your functions, your ego, everything is stopped. Huh? But that also takes, you can't just do it suddenly. It's a gradual process, so it takes a long time for the yogis to develop that in a proper way. If they also don't do properly, they also go crazy. They can also, if they do kundalini and all this stuff, and they do it wrong way, then they also go crazy. So then you have to be very careful with those techniques.
Thank
you. Mm-hmm.
If the Earth vibrates at 7.83,
yeah.
And then other places in the world, like all over the world, have different vibrations, how do they get the Earth's vibrations, and where do they get it from?
Oh, well, the scientists have measured this. Yeah, it goes up into the ionosphere and it bounces back like that. So they measure it up there, I think, when it's in that state like that, as it comes back to the Earth and whatever like that. But the problem is, on Earth, we have all these other vibrations coming in. We have all the sound pollution and all these radio waves and 4G and 5G and all these waves, electrical towers itself. All of this creates very, very bad vibrations. On the other hand, if you can say, cities themselves create unnatural vibrations as well. So this all helps disturb that natural vibration of the Earth, and therefore it also disturbs our own natural alpha state. Oh, I don't know. It's maybe 400 miles up there. I'm not sure. It's quite far up there. Yeah.
Do we have more effect if we chant loudly the mantra, or if we chant in silence?
We can do it either way. Some mantras you do not chant loud at all. For instance, the Gayatri mantras, those you're not actually supposed to chant loud. You're supposed to chant them inside like this. Like the Hare Krishna mantra, that is a mantra you can chant loudly or softly, and actually it is more effective even chanting it loudly. But you could do it either way.
What different ways are there to get to Atma?
What's that?
What other ways are there to have the Atma feeling, the bliss?
Oh, yeah. So we have to, the whole idea of spiritual life is to increase the influence of the Atma, or the soul, and obviously decrease all these other thoughts and stuff going on in our mind and our distractions in the material world. So how to do that? So different processes are there. So that yoga process is there to stop all these things. So by doing the yoga, first you do the asanas, then we do pranayama, then we withdraw the senses from looking at things, then we start concentrating inside. That's called dharana, and we get to jhana, which is meditation. So we concentrate on one point for long periods of time. We get to samadhi, the complete stoppage of all thought process. And then the Atma's naturally, only the Atma's left. So you realize, oh, I am the Atma. But it's a very long process, and it's a little difficult. So that's why we see the yogis up there in the Himalayas in their caves meditating, etc. So it's a long process to really do that. So the easier process is not to stop the senses, but to stimulate the Atma. How do we do that? That's where we do the kirtan. So that kirtan is the sound, the spiritual sound. So that penetrates, it goes in our ear, and it penetrates to the Atma. It starts a little exciting the Atma, like a little bit. So the more the Atma gets stimulated, the more it starts developing spiritually. It gets stronger and stronger spiritually through that influence of the mantra. And simultaneously, we don't have to stop the sense. We hear with the ear, and we can do other processes with our different senses as well. And we don't have to stop any sense, actually. We can all engage nicely in bhakti yoga And through that, then the Atma gradually develops spiritually. So rather than stopping the senses, we engage the senses, but we engage it spiritually, through mantra and through service, etc.
You said before that sometimes something a yogi can do can go crazy. What can you say? What do you mean by that?
What is that? I couldn't hear.
Sorry, I said before you were talking about some kind of technique yogi could be practicing could be also making them go crazy.
Oh yeah.
Can you elaborate?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the question is that some yogis, they could also go crazy if they don't do their process properly. So that's why in India, if you're going to do these practices, you actually need a guide or a guru. So if you want to do Kundalini, for instance, then you would have to go to a proper guru to learn the techniques properly and make sure you don't, do something wrong. Because if you do them wrong, then you end up with problems in your body. Psychological problems or even physical problems, because we're not dealing with normal, physical disease or anything there. By using your pranas, or these energies in the body, which are subtle and not gross, you can start affecting all your subtle body and then the gross body as well, and in negative ways. So this can create physical problems and psychological problems. And it's not only in yoga. In China, they have Qigong, which is kind of like Chinese yoga. So apparently they have a whole hospital especially for the people that go crazy from that process. They don't follow the right process and they end up crazy, so they stick them in that hospital. They have a special compound for them there. The people that go crazy by misusing or mispracticing Qigong. So when we do start using pranayama and these processes, we have to be a little careful in how we do them, especially if you rush the whole process. Yeah? Apparently, one theory is that we have the chakras, and that you have to purify these chakras one after the other from the lowest chakra upwards. And most people are stuck on the 3 lower chakras, and if we start surpassing that method and we start working on the higher chakras, then there's a big disturbance in the lower chakras, and it starts doing all sorts of things to our subtle body and our mind, etc., and our physical body, and then we may go crazy as a result of that. So a person observes that it's not so safe to follow that process of trying to raise the kundalini through the chakras because of these problems that may take place. So the safer thing actually is to concentrate on the heart chakra and develop unconditional love through the heart chakra. It's a safer method. So that's basically what bhakti yoga is. Where of course it's not the physical chakra itself, but it's the atma within that area with unconditional love, which will naturally stimulate the whole body and all the chakras and open them up, etc. So that's a more natural way of doing it, without having the bad physical effects or the psychological effects.
Is a Kundalini awakening, like you said, is that the same as reaching the bliss body?
In one sense, it's a realization of the Atma, ultimately separating the Atma from the gross and the subtle bodies, and then we contact the Atma.
Once you reach Atma after this long process of doing all these different things, and you're up there, what do you do then?
So one thing is you just sit there. This is the mukti state. You're in a state of complete absence of mind and all these things in the lower level, and you can just separate yourself from the body, and you can just stay in that state. If you leave your body in that state, this is called the liberation state, which is eternal. So you just stay in this peaceful state forever. That's one level.
So your body that's here, and you're just experiencing this eternal peaceful.
Yeah. Then you can give up your body completely.
But your body will be given up eventually anyway.
Yeah, or you can come back to your body and then live in the body and then kind of half relate to this world and go up in that state whenever you want to.
If you go up whenever you want to.
Well, it maybe take a little time, but you can practice it. So that's one state. That's one state you can reach. The other state is just don't realize Atma, but you realize Supreme Lord like Krishna, and you establish a relationship between Atma and Krishna. So that's what we do in Bhakti Yoga. So that's a higher state of bliss. It's not just absence of everything and peace. It's a state of love and action, actually, because we serve the Lord eternally in that, and we develop a spiritual body for that. So that's a higher state.
That's what. So when you establish that Atman bond with Krishna,
yeah,
you use your body to serve Krishna in this.
Yeah. As long as we have the body, and then we have a spiritual body when we give up this body. So we have two bodies.
Are there practices or things you can look into, like I could look into, to be able to be more aware of the vibrations in nature around me?
Well, probably in Bhakti Yoga we don't concentrate so much on that, except in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. There's a whole section that you can look at this world and you see a certain thing like a lion. And then you admire the lion because of his strength and he's the king of the animals, etc. And he has some certain qualities. So we can meditate on certain objects of this world as representing, on a material level, something of the a reflection of the spiritual qualities in the spiritual world. So we can through seeing some aspects of this material world, we can into the perfection of the spiritual world and the Supreme Lord there. So that's a type of meditation in the material world when we see it's a reflection of the Supreme Lord, the mercy of the Lord, and qualities of the Lord.
If we did wrong with the practice of Kundalini or breathing exercise, how can we recover it?
How can we?
How can we restore the problem if we did wrong with that?
Oh, how can we recover? Well, I don't know. You have to go back to the yogi and ask him. Sometimes it's very, very difficult to cure once it's happened. It does irreparable damage to your nervous system or whatever, and it's very difficult to correct that afterwards. People have weird visions in their head like schizophrenia or something like that, or they get headaches all the time, or they get backaches, whatever. Certain things may be incurable even if it's too serious. So if one's going to practice this, you have to do it very gradually. It's not suddenly you don't go to the highest level and start practicing 64 counts of inward, outward, and holding your breath, etc., and doing rigorous asanas, etc. You have to go very, very gradually in that, and then you have to have the guru to guide you on how to do it properly. Okay. Oh, one back there.
One more.
One more.
Chris?
Is there any advice that you could give us? Is there any advice that you could give us to help us on our path?
What is the advice? Okay, everybody's at a different level, so I think it's an individual choice where you want to go and how you want to advance, etc. So the basic thing for everybody, at least, we should understand that simply taking care of our body is not the ultimate goal in life, and therefore there must be another goal. So we have to ask, what is that goal? So when we do that, then we can speculate or anything. So better we go to some authority. So we should go to some scripture. So let us go to Bhagavad Gita, which is famous in India. And if you look in the 2nd chapter, then you'll start getting the answer to that first question right there. So that's step number 1. Maybe that's the step we should go to first, and everyone should start at that. Okay, I'm not the body, I'm something else. What is it? And then we can read chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, and then we can start from there and go further after that. But at least we should understand we're not the body, and our goal in life is something other than simply taking care of the body.
Thank you very much. So, there's a great attentive audience. Can't believe it. Monday, Maharaj, next Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.